Hello and welcome. I am so excited today. I have Mary Bell on the podcast. She is the owner and creator of Busy Bell, a boutique email marketing and copyright agency for 6, 7, and 8-figure personal brands, coaches, consultants, and influencers with a background in membership sales. Mary will help her clients to scale their revenue impact by commanding authority and developing relationships with strategic and intentional messaging, which I can attest to. She also consults on offer creation and overall business strategies, helping her clients find extra revenue hiding in plain sight. Welcome, Mary. I'm so excited to get into this.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we met and connected. This past week has been like really eye-opening, just getting to know you and know myself, really.
Yes. It's been so much fun for me to work with Mary. I was just curious about her chart, like I do. I always share just a little bit more about people so that when you're listening, you can understand maybe where they're coming from, what their energy imprint is, so you can really grow and understand. Maybe if you know someone or you are like this, you can really utilize this information. But with Mary, it's been like, whoa, we've just tapped into so many patterns. And it's the interesting thing is Mary has her son right on my midheaven, which is really career. And so she has been reflecting to me through, me gifting her this reading, where maybe my business needs to go and grow as well. Working with some of these high value, entrepreneurial women to really open up these cycles. And so I'm really grateful to have met you as well. It's just been really fun.
Awesome. I love it. We'll be friends for life.
Yes, that is exactly what I've been thinking. I want to highlight just a little bit for the listeners. So we looked at your human design, and you're a generator. You're here to respond. You're here to be like sacrally excited and kind of follow that lead. But you're also a 1-3, which we talked about, is that profile that really digs deep and grows that foundational level, but is also always experimenting to make sure that that foundation works for people, right? So you're utilizing that in your business. And then you're the cross of the Maya, which is really always seeking and figuring out like what's the truth of things and how do they work and the effect on others. I always love this is people pass through my life when they need to figure something out. And you're really good at figuring something out. You're a Virgo rising. That Virgo rising is just so organized and can put into words like, whatever you're creating, and you can really sit down and bring it into earth, right? Bring it into the material world. But you also have so many gifts with that sun in Aries and your moon in Aries, which is like double Aries, let's go energy, right? Like
Yeah.
fired up. We're gonna courageously, move forward, but in a very intentional way. So yeah, it's been really great to see this kind of play out for you, and you've really been living your life in a what I would call kind of being guided already by your intuition. And how did you get that way? Like, tell me where you started, and you do breath work and all of these different things as well. Like, how did that path kind of unfold for you?
Yeah. I always go back to 2009, which is something we should look at. That's so funny. I never even thought of that, but 2009.
I'm looking while we talk.
Okay. I wish I could remember what month that was. If I looked back in some kind of record of mine, I could probably find it. But in 2009, I was having some health problems. And my sister, she's 12 years older than me, and she has kind of been, and she's a Virgo, and she has been on like a spiritual path and healing path before I was. So she kind of taught me a lot about that stuff, meditation and Reiki and Diksha and all this kind of healing stuff. And I remember the first time she offered to do Reiki on me. And I was like, sure, just to make her feel good, like, yes, of course, you can try this thing on me, whatever. And I laid down and she started sharing Reiki with me. And I got so dizzy. I felt like I was spinning, gonna fall off the bed or throw up. And I told her, I was like, I'm so nauseated, you have to stop. And she was like, oh, it's just a really intense chakra or something, really intense blockage. Let me move somewhere else. And in my head, I'm like, no, no, like I'm going to be sick. And she moved to a different area and it went away. And I thought that was so powerful for me, for somebody needing proof, that like I knew nothing about Reiki. I had no preconceived notions. It wasn't a placebo effect. I had this side effect that there's no way I could have known that's what I should be feeling. And it happened. And so I was like, oh, I gotta know more about this. What is this? So that's when I became certified in Reiki. And that's when I started breath work and meditation, that whole journey. And it really changed. I mean, when I got attuned to Reiki energy, all of the different areas of my life changed. My health changed. The health problem I was having completely disappeared to the point where my doctor was like, oh, I got to double check these test results because I don't believe it. So like health changed, career path changed. I had an opportunity to change universities and go to a like way better university. My love life changed. I was dating somebody and I got rid of that and started dating my now husband. Our geographic location changed. We moved to Nashville, everything. And so I feel like that whole year of evidence to me was like, you can take risks because something has my back, like for my greater good.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So I glanced at, where I saw a little pile up in 2009, and it was that you had Jupiter conjunct the Neptune in your sixth house. We've talked about your sixth house before of health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had Jupiter and Neptune and Chiron, that wounded healer that's going to make sure that you're on path and you're going to learn through maybe some hardships too. They all met up right there in your sixth house of health. So it was like, we're going to speak to you through this, this area of your life. We're going to give you all this jumping off. I always think of Jupiter as like it's giving you so many gifts, right? Like this jumping off point. And Neptune is kind of the dissolver. So kind of dissolving old beliefs for you even.
Yeah.
And that was the
That
sixth house.
resonates.
Yeah. So then the next, within, a year or so, Jupiter moved into your seventh house, which is, partnership. Seventh house is usually when you're going to meet somebody very important. So yeah, I could just see that arc, that beautiful arc. And that's what I love so much about astrology, is seeing the patterns, right? Like seeing the that arc.
It's so amazing, especially that I love that I'm meeting you now when all of this has happened and I can look back at it as like, wow, that is really cool. But I got to learn these lessons through intuition as opposed to somebody explaining to me what's happening. But now that I've built that trust with myself, I'm really excited to see like, well, what's coming next?
Yes. And you can understand like why the lessons were there. And there's so much healing to looking back at patterns, but also even moving forward into new challenges and exciting times. It's like, ooh, you've got this new mindset. Yeah. Like I've just been looking at my patterns a lot lately too. And I'm like, yes, like new challenges are coming. But wow, there's this beautiful arc, and I only have this much time before this ends, so I better get going. Right? It gives
Oh,
you
I
this
love that.
new level of like push, because I only get to play in this realm for so long, and then it's gonna kind of say, okay, you had fun, let's go to this area. Right?
I think even you sharing with me that phrase or idea of like people cross my path when they need to learn something. And
Yeah.
I always knew that other people came into my life when I needed to learn something. But just that shift of like, well, they are coming to me because they need something too, I feel like is making me more confident to be bold and say things
Yeah.
that I might have said, in my head before. Now I'm like, well, might as well just say it.
Yeah. Exactly, because you know that you've got so much fire to activate people, right?
Mm,
That's what I always think of the fire signs. It's like you're sending out this fire that could really, maybe they've got a lot of earth that they need a little activation, or they're kind of, and whatever you're feeling this need to say, it's like you're giving them that kind of activation energy. Where they are in their journey and how they take it is their process. But yeah, having
yeah.
that confidence to share that.
Yeah. And
I
probably knowing what I know and having gone through some of it myself, if they don't get it now with me, it'll keep coming back until they get it somewhere. And then one day they'll look back and they'll be like, that's why Mary said that.
yeah. 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 I love reframing because the mind is so powerful, and when we start to make these reframes and these shifts, we really get to live in this intentional and creative space that we're not like bumping into it so much, but we're like ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I love
I
it.
I know. Yeah, let's keep moving up the we had so much fun kind of going over your cycles. And so
hmm
then we had, 2014. When we look at the progressed chart, we're really seeing this evolution of a 30-year cycle, right? That the end of whatever you've been doing and the creation of something new. But that can be hard. Like endings can be hard because it can come out of nowhere, and then you have to like start with this new, what I like to call Bambi energy of like, okay, where am I going? So tell me about that time when when your new moon, so you're ending the cycle. Maybe if you could even understand what that cycle was pushing you towards, and how it ended for you.
Yeah. So 2014 is when I graduated with my doctorate. And I had been in grad school for 8 years. So I don't know what the 30-year span would be, but I definitely had this transition even from, lower school and then high school, not ever feeling super smart. I was always into sports, and um like that was way more important to me was the athletics I was involved in. And then when I got to college, I kind of figured out how to study and how to learn, and I started to see that I was smart. um I could comprehend things better than when I was younger. I just got good at studying and learning, and then it was exciting, and then it was like, oh, I want to learn more. um but even at the end of undergrad, when it was time to make a decision, like I went to grad school because I wasn't ready to get a job. And I had a professor who was like, well, you should consider going to grad school. And I was like, okay, so it kind of like just kept pushing along and just saying, okay, I'll go do that, but then I was really good in grad school too. And I was like the statistician, of my cohort, which is pretty rare. That's a hard subject for a lot of people, and it just came to me. And but I didn't want to go into academia, and I was kind of just following along, like this is what I'm supposed to do. Um and then when it came time to graduate, I was like, it was like bubbling, 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 bubbling. And then I got to a point where I was like, I have to say something. I have to tell my advisor that like this is not the path I'm going to go on, because the way it works is you apply for jobs before you officially graduate. So by the time you are defending your dissertation, you usually have a job lined up. You have interviewed, you have applied, you have interviewed, you've been, sent an offer, and you've accepted by the time you finish. So it wasn't even like, well, I'll just finish and then kind of sneak out of here. It was like, no, You have to confront this. You can't just keep going like you have been. And I had to have a conversation with my advisor that terrified me. I was so afraid, all of those thoughts of like, what is he going to think? Is he going to try and change my mind? And will I be swayed? Like I have been just kind of pushed along, keep going in academia. There was so much fear and hesitation, but knowing I have to do this or I'm going to like implode. I remember sitting on my friend's front porch crying before I had to go have this conversation. I felt sick to my stomach, knowing that I was about to blow up my world. And like you said, with the Bambi legs, I had nothing lined up. It wasn't like you have a job and a career and you're applying for other things and you get an offer and you're like, oh, I'm going to go tell my boss I got an offer and I'm leaving. It was like, I have no idea what's on the other side. I have no idea what's next, what's coming. Not even that there weren't opportunities coming at me, but that I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just knew it wasn't this. And I went forward with it and told him, and he was not happy. It was not a good conversation. We never spoke again after I graduated. But it needed to happen. It needed to happen. I was not on the right path.
Yeah. And what what I love about it is that you have all this Aries energy that's like, I have to teach everybody what courage looks like. It doesn't feel good. It's not like I'm, like it's like courage means that doing it anyways, even if you are scared, and you're always kind of showing us that, right? Like that's pretty courageous to say, I don't know. My mind has no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to step out because I know that I can't do this. This isn't right for me. I don't know what is, but I'm going to say, you know, step step into the void.
Yeah.
The interesting thing was you talked about knowing that it wasn't your path. The nodes of the moon are always kind of rotating through, making sure that we are kind of activating different things in our chart and that we are on path. And the north node, which is really pointing you towards where you're going, was literally going over your Saturn at this time, which we talked about your Saturn constantly coming up with self-worth, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like, here it is again. I'm going to activate my self-worth. I don't know if I'm worthy, but I have to go in this direction. Mars was right there. That Mars kind of rules Aries anyways. So that Mars energy is very strong for you. And so it was like, yep, this is time, that new moon, let's step out. And so then you kept, moving forward. So where did that take you then? How did you figure out your next steps?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just touch on that for a second, because, I mentioned like the fear of my professor and what was he going to think and all this, but there was so much other fear too of like, what are my parents going to think? And just other people's expectations of me. And so, yes, that self-worth of like, well, if I'm not a professor, am I am I as worthy as these other kids around me who are going to go on to be professors? So there was definitely, I see that it challenged my self-worth at that point too.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, and you were talking before we started recording about the foundations, for a while after I graduated, people would ask me like, I had people very boldly be like, oh my gosh, isn't that like the greatest regret of your life? I'm like, no. But I had to go through a couple different transitions. Like the first job I had out of grad school was making $13 an hour. And that was like a punch to the gut, because even for 2014, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
And then I moved, that was like a sales and operations position. And then I moved into more of a marketing position. that was at $20 an hour, like we're moving up. And then I got invited to manage a business, and that was like sales, marketing, and operations. So there was a lot of like new learning, but the skills and the knowledge I acquired earning my PhD still affect what I do today. I mean, my
Yeah.
PhD is in sociology and I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
So like, and specifically social psychology was my specialty. So like understanding people, understanding human behavior and group behavior and what moves people, why people want to belong, and all of this is so important for what I do now.
Yeah.
But then there's all the other skills that you learn in grad school, like being organized and time management and project management, like all of these different things you have to do on your way to earning that degree. Huge for business and owning your own business and managing people and all this, right? So like, and then with the statistician piece, that plays a big role in what I do now with email marketing, and understanding sales and marketing and all that. So it's funny how at the time I had no idea. I felt like, well, this was a waste of 8 years of my life, and getting that reflected back to me from other people too, just kind of made me feel like, all right, well, got to move on from it. But now seeing, wow, it's so good I was on that path when I was, and that I learned those foundations, and now I can experiment with them in different ways,
Yeah.
just because I didn't become a professor doesn't mean I don't use that education and skills all the time.
Well, and it was happening in in the ninth house of higher education, right? Like
Oh.
you were building this mountain, and then you got to the apex, and it was like, okay, now I have to start from the bottom and create another mountain, right? And now you're using all that information, but yeah, you're doing it in a new way. And it just
Mm-hmm.
it's so fascinating to me. I love seeing patterns show up, and how do we react to these patterns, and how could we maybe use these to help us. And you're just such a great example of the courage that you use to go after these things, and kind of trusting that
Mm.
there is something guiding you, there is something working for you, and then you keep going. I don't know if you have another place that you want to go, but I'd love to hit that, the Saturn self-worth again, that we had talked about, if you're
Yeah,
if you're open to talking about.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just kind of discussing, and Mary had mentioned that she had gone through a really hard time, nursing your daughter, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And having this whole self-worth, and just struggling in every area of your life. And so we kind of pulled up the chart, and it was like, of course, Saturn was in the fifth house. It's going to teach you
Mm-hmm.
your Saturn lesson of worth through your child, right? And
Mm.
there's just so much energy in that. And that was maybe a little bit healing to look back on it. But when you were going through it, can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, when other people describe to me who they feel like I am, they always mention confidence. And people even ask me, like, oh my gosh, how are you so confident? Like, I wish I could have your confidence. That entire year of dealing with that, I was like a shriveled up, small, very fearful version of myself. I had no confidence because of, like, as a mom and as a woman, I felt like I couldn't feed my daughter. Like I was struggling and I had to work so hard at it because of that, like, Aries fire, I had to find a way. So I pumped, right? Like I was still determined to feed her breast milk. So at one point I was pumping like 12 times a day just to get my supply back up and keep going. Um, but the ding it had on my confidence spread to every area of my life. And so even though this was happening at home with my child, it made me feel like it affected my business, and I didn't really show up as confidently, and I didn't, um, I remember too, people being like, well, why wouldn't you do that? Whatever that bold thing is in my business. And I remember thinking like, because there's no way I could, I couldn't do that. Whereas if those things were being suggested to me now, I'd be like, yes, let's go. But then that lack of confidence really pulled me down in all areas of my life. But starting at home and starting with my daughter and just feeling like, not just a mom, but feeling like uh, a woman, like I, this is what my body is naturally supposed to do, and I can't do it. What is wrong with me? That's the quote, right? Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And all of the shoulding, you know, um, yeah, that was rough.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a Saturn lesson. When Saturn kind of moves through the chart, it's always checking in with where it's at, right? And yours happens to be in self-worth. So it's always kind of
Mm.
checking back in, right? So I'm going along, and then I hit a square. Square is kind of rough energy. That's where it was, with all of this energy in that fifth house. And it's like, okay, we're going to use, you know, children, but maybe if you were a writer and you were creating, instead of children, a book, or maybe you're creating a business, and it could have used a lot of these things to show you that, right? No matter where.
Mm.
And so it happened to work that way. I mean, also your business is your baby too. So you had two babies going on that
Mm-hmm.
Saturn was kind of affecting. And then it just kind of moved out, and maybe you got the lesson and started moving again. And
There was a lot of guilt there too, because I was growing a business while I was having a newborn. I mean, I took like 36 hours of maternity leave. I had just signed 2 new clients before I had her. And I was like, well, I can't not serve my clients, right? So then there was this guilt of like, can I do both? And did my daughter suffer because I was trying to grow my business? There was like a lot of self-judgment there
yeah,
that wasn't coming. It wasn't coming from external. Nobody ever said to me, oh, do you think this is because you're so focused on work? But my brain went there. And again, with confidence being low at that point, it was like, you believe all of the negative stuff that your head is saying.
yeah, yeah,
So it was really, yeah, it was really hard. But I appreciated so much you sharing that with me, because I had sort of come out of it on the other end and been like, I think the biggest realization was how much what's happening in my personal life affects my business and relationships and everything else. You know, as an entrepreneur, I feel like um, sometimes we think they're so separate, or we want to keep them separate. But understanding and being able to see how much that personal thing that was happening in my home was affecting my business and what I was able to do, and how I was able to show up.
um,
That was a great lesson to learn.
yeah.
Because
And
now if something is going on that's like taking me out of it, I just give myself more grace. I'm like, okay, I need support, or I need help, or I need something so that I can,
yeah,
keep the business going.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a great lesson, hard lesson, but they're worth it.
Yes. Yes, that's what I always think. The harder the lesson, the more you grow, right?
Mm,
And that one, it was also restructuring, right? Like restructuring how you show up in your business and how you show up as a mother. Saturn's always restructuring, right? It's giving us the, okay, it's slowing me down to really figure this out. And then it moved into your health not too much
mhm.
later, and we had a nice trigger, that you were just in the hospital recently.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was very
Um,
interesting because it literally hit, I can't remember what, but it was like rules the gallbladder, and you had, yeah,
yes.
it was like, wow,
Yeah,
can't make that up.
I know. Yeah, I told you, you were like, "Oh, well, that's because you were, it was here in the health." And then I said it was my gallbladder, and you were like, "Oh, well, that's 47 or
Yeah.
whatever it was." And I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah. And so we're moving Saturn through daily life, right? How do I structure daily life and my health and my wellness routines and things like that? And it's probably helping you restructure, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things I used to do for my health that I just had gotten away from. And so,
Yeah.
like, even my morning routine has changed and been consistent every day because it's not, I don't know. I guess once I never had a major health problem before. I had something that the other health issue that I was talking about before with the Reiki, but I never ended up in the hospital in my life. I've never been to the hospital except for having babies. Um, so I almost feel like, I don't know, there was something so eye-opening about this that even though I have been health conscious my whole life, this was a wake-up call of like, okay, it can't just be a trendy thing you do for a little while. Like it has to be a priority.
Yeah.
Um, and that's keeping me motivated. Like, I guess it was to have it happen to an organ that you can afford to lose. You don't want to, but you can afford to lose it. I feel like is the universe saying, do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Like, okay, do you get it? Yes, make your health a priority.
Yeah.
And I hear you. I hear you. I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the ways that Saturn worked for me too. It shut me down. Like when it hit my health, uh, I couldn't hardly leave my house. I was having panic attacks and autoimmune issues and all these things. I mean, I had Pluto there too, so lots of energy. But it really drove me to where I'm at. So I'm really thankful for it now, and I'm really happy for all the empathy that I can have for anybody going through anything health wise, right? Like there's so many lessons that I've learned from that. And I always am so super thankful of Saturn and Pluto. I always look at the lessons of both of those. I'm really thankful for them, but yeah, it can be really hard when you're going
Mhm.
through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you just reminded me too, like that empathy and sharing with other people. Like, I really feel like what I experienced with Lola and the breastfeeding struggles made me so much more empathetic to other moms who do, like, and just moms in general, even if they're not having those struggles, just
Yeah.
the whole role of being a mom is so hard. And so there's a lot in my content or just, reaching out or sharing with other women is like, I just want them to know they're doing a good job. They're doing the best they can. It's hard for all of us. You're not alone. Like that is so important to me since having kids, but especially since having that experience and feeling like not a good mom, not a good woman. I just want all women to know like how valuable it is that they're doing what they're doing. And I just want to like give them so much love and support.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm always trying to find too with women in business, because men are very, dopamine, let's go, let's hard charge, and women are more dialed in by oxytocin and connection and things like that. And it's like, how can we support women? And we have these cycles too, we have the menstrual cycle, which is literally the moon cycle, right? Like we are
Mhm.
cyclical like nobody's business, right? And so
Yeah.
like how do we support women more and more and more to create, and we've got this push for women right now to understand ourselves more, to kind of operate in new ways. We don't have to operate like men anymore. We're kind of finding our own footing in this business world and how to operate in this new way. And I think that's something that's starting to show too. And you're even learning that with having children and growing this business and all the things that you're doing. So yeah, it's a really fun time to be women in business right now. kind of
Yeah.
pioneering, right?
Yeah. It's funny too, because this whole time I've been in business, a lot of like copywriters become coaches, or freelancers become some kind of coach. And I've always been like, no, 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 that's not for me. I just want to focus. I want to serve my clients and just focus. But that I really do feel a pull of like, if there is a role for me to teach or educate or coach or whatever, it is entrepreneurs, like women entrepreneurs, mom entrepreneurs, because there's not a lot of examples out there. You
Yeah.
know, most of my mentors have been men too, or women who play very much in the masculine, you know, push, drive, hustle, whatever.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a lot of room and opportunity for, that more feminine energy that still has success. Like, I have high drive, but I also, especially from the lessons I've learn to accept and release and let go and sit back sometimes. And that's
Yeah.
when I usually have the biggest, leaps forward.
I think that the more we can step into the feminine, even because Venus is really big in women's charts, and your Venus is that in that gate 8, which we talked about in Taurus, that really is an amplifier of other people's voices. So it's like the more that you step into this role as amplifying other people's voices, and that just being something that you are, right? Like that's who I am. I don't have to push towards it. I just have to show up and be that. And I'm
Mm,
naturally amplifying these voices, and you have so many other ways of serving people with all that Virgo earth energy. Like, let's bring it into form. Yeah. let's make it real.
yeah.
And then that Aries kind of driving them to be a little bit courageous, right? To kind of
Mm.
to kind of be that fire starter for them. You're really stepping into your purpose in a big way, and I just can't wait to even see this continue. But yeah, talk a little bit about what you're doing, who you're serving, and maybe how, if somebody is interested by this conversation, could learn more about you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So there's sort of two sides to my business. One side is full service email marketing and list management. So we are writing the emails, we are sending them, we are setting up your automated sequences and writing those and scheduling those so that they drip out the way that they should. We're testing deliverability and making sure that your emails are landing in the inbox and not going to spam or a different folder where people won't see it. We are literally doing full service email marketing. You don't have to touch a thing. You just tell us stories every once in a while, or we stalk you if you've got a good social media presence and personal brand. And we come up with different topics, different strategies to help you make more sales through email. And we work a lot with coaches, consultants, influencers, people who I call them like movement makers. If you've got a community and you're trying to like help shift identity in other people, with a membership or a program or courses, we love to work with those kinds of clients. Absolutely. And then I have a different side that is consulting. And so in the email marketing side, it is a boutique agency. So it's me, I have 2 writers and 1 list manager. So we're very small. I'm still very involved in every aspect of it. But then on the other side is consulting. And so I have some clients who either already have a team and they just need an expert's eyes on, well, are the emails we're sending any good? Are our offers any good? Like, we're not getting as many calls as we used to. What's happening? All of that kind of stuff. I can come in and say, okay, well, here's, your automated sequence doesn't even work anymore. You got to change it. Or the emails you're sending aren't very good. Let's change it. Like, I copy chief a little bit and show them how to make them better. So, somebody who's got a team in place, or if they're writing their own emails, that's a really great offer. And also with consulting, because I came from the fitness industry, I think it works really well for like monthly recurring revenue type things. If you've got a business that has a membership, that's what I did for, 6 years, still doing it. So really like 8 years later, everything from marketing to sales to operations, your sales team, the whole thing. If you are not making enough recurring revenue off of your membership or program, like I can help you figure that out. And that's consulting too. So usually you have your team, you have your sales team, your marketing folks, whatever. And I find all the holes and tell you how to fill them, and your team goes and fills them, and you make more money. So that's what I
Yeah.
do.
I love that. And it's very, very interesting to me because your son is in this like middles and ends. So it's like I don't want to help you start your business, but I just want to help you grow that kind of like that middle middle
Yeah.
part. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very fascinating to see as well. I maybe I could find somebody that does some starting too, so we could pair you guys,
Oh
say
yeah. That'd
this
be awesome.
episode they start and this episode she grows.
Yeah. I love
So
it.
put that out there. But yeah, no, I love what you're doing. I am seeing over and over again where how beautiful this is to take that kind of Virgo statistics
Mhm.
energy that you have, and how you've paired it with everything, and it's such a symphony that is needed, right? Because I don't have any
Mm.
air or any earth in my chart, and I'm like, how do you even do this? Oh, Mariel,
You find somebody.
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what's the best place for people to see your work or visit your website or anything like that? And I'll put it in the
Yeah.
show
So
notes.
sure. So my website is thebusybell.com, and Bell has an E at the end, even though my last name does not have an E. It was a cute creative thing, when I first launched this business 3.5 years ago. But now it might be confusing. So my name is Mary Bell, Bell. My website is thebusybell.com. And then I connect with a lot of people on social media. So Instagram or Facebook, just as it appears on my Zoom name, Mary Lasky Bell is me. Um, I always just say, if you're going to request me as a friend, send me a DM, because I get a lot and I don't always review them if I don't know who it is. So just shoot me a DM and be like, I heard you on Angela's podcast.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes, I would urge anybody to just kind of check out what you're doing, especially if you have a business, and if not, just to maybe get fired up about creating a business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable with kind of the cycles of your life, because I just think that's a beautiful way for people to understand that things are happening for them. It's happening for a reason. And you highlighted that for us. And then sharing your gifts and your story is so powerful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yes. Thank you.